Joining us right now is Jim Schultz, a CNN legal commentator and former Trump White House lawyer, and Alan Tuerkheimer, a jury consultant and attorney. Thank you both for joining me. Jim, let me ask you, you were watching yesterday very closely. What are you interested in hearing the prosecutors get into with David Pecker today?
So first off, the prosecutors have a bunch of witnesses with baggage, David Pecker being one of them, right? So David Pecker made a deal. David Pecker is now turned on Donald Trump. I think the Trump team is going to look to discredit him for the deal that he cut. I think they're going to try to impeach his testimony for that. But I think yesterday kind of set the table for kind of the process. Today, I think we're going to hear some of the details as to how the deals were cut in David Pecker's eyes.
And Alan, I heard you say yesterday that people need to remember something that people need to remember about jurors is jurors want a story. What kind of story does David Pecker? What kind of story does he tell for the prosecution? And also, being the first witness, what role does he play, do you think, in the overall story?
He certainly gives jurors the ability to look into the window of Donald Trump's business dealings as it related to his election prospects and what was going on. And as was just mentioned, Jim said that these other witnesses, maybe they have baggage. Some of them, jurors are going to wonder about their motives for testifying. But being such an early witness, it really sets the stage for jurors to create this overarching case story in their minds. And then once they do that, the other witnesses will either reinforce for them what that case story is, or if the witnesses get up there and there's some contradictions, then that'll go against it. And then the jurors have to decide which of the witnesses is more believable than the others.
And Alan, when you're doing jury research and also when you're prepping legal teams, when it comes to witnesses with baggage, you've got David Pecker today, we know that the defense is going to focus squarely and try to discredit Michael Cohen. They already started that with opening statements. How does that baggage, how does that part of the story, how does that impact a juror, and how does a legal team successfully overcome that?
You have to remind jurors that these witnesses are under oath, and whatever the circumstances are that brought them to testify, they have relevant information that bear on the actual charges in this case. You have to try to get the jurors to focus on that. You have to get the jurors to focus on what the witness says, what they testify to. And jurors look at a lot of things. They look at motivation. They look at whether witnesses are consistent. They look at whether or not they're knowledgeable. Are they evasive? Do they come off as arrogant? And a lot of times too, which is interesting, is that jurors look at nonverbal communication as well. So they don't just look at what the witness is actually saying. That is important, but they also look at how the witness is saying it and how they come off when they're testifying under oath. And what's really important too is consistency between direct and cross-examination. So David Pecker's getting his story out for the prosecution. When he's cross-examined, the jurors will be very interested to see if his demeanor totally changes or whether or not he's consistent in the way he's answering questions from opposing counsel.
That's a good point. Jim, one thing that came out of openings was that the prosecution wants to portray this case as an election interference case, not as a hush money case as it's been described for so long. What do you think of that choice? Why do you think they're making, maybe it's not a shift for them, but it's definitely a shift from how this has been described for quite some time?
So I think the purpose they need a theme of the case, right? What's their theory of the case? The theory of the case is, the business records were doctored because they were trying to hide this information from the general public during an election cycle, right? The problem with that is that in and of itself is not a crime. Politicians try to hide their baggage all the time from the general public when they're running for office. So now they have to look at the true crimes that make this a felony, right? Remember, this would have been a misdemeanor, but for the fact that they made allegations that crimes were covered up. Campaign finance, tax, those kinds of things. They're going to have to make a showing on that at some point in time, and they're not going to be able to just rely on, hey, we were trying to cover up Donald Trump's baggage for purposes of an election. And that's going to be a real tough hurdle to jump over.
Yeah, Alan, you were talking about demeanor. You have years of experience with jury research and helping legal teams prep for trial. I'm interested in your take on the Trump demeanor in court. We don't have cameras in there, but from everyone who's inside, they've described him so far as pretty controlled and muted compared to how he's acted in past court appearances. How much coaching and conversation do you have with the client about how they act in court when the jury is present? What impact do you think his demeanor in court in this case could make on the jury?
So you always tell a client that the jury is always watching them. So don't slip up. Don't do anything that you think is going to irk the jury. Stay calm. Stay focused. Stay interested. Don't come off as if you're uninterested in the process. The jurors are giving their time. This is so important. And I think he's going to heed that call. This is not like any of his campaign rallies or campaign events or even the debates that he participated in. So this is a very different process. I think it's really important for Trump and his team to keep in mind that he has to just respect the process and come off as someone who's treating this very seriously, because these are serious charges and he deserves a presumption of innocence.
We'll see how that demeanor and how that comes across from day to day to day. It's good to see you both. Thank you.